Finally, we are approaching the part of the year when a day is made by 2 days. Did you know that in this part of the world, it can get dark at 10:30 in summer? So it's time to get lost in the city and travel through its portals. Teika, Brasa, Agenskans, Šampeteris, Riga, Maskačka, Central Rajons, Klusait centers, Skanste. Time to be swallowed by the city and re-establish the connection with this weird bunch of buildings and people. And this could be the basis to slowly grant this giant more and more decades in a future where we don't know in which shape it's going to survive. Today you are all part of history. You have the chance to grab the bicycle and explore most probably the closest idea of Riga, similar to the last 100 years before the whole city turns into an application. I have a special guest today, Malvīne. Is someone that I met a while ago, and we started having a nice conversation. And we were in Pardaugava, in probably one of my favorite pubs, I would say, which she knows already because I told her. And it's Pils in Smilgajela, right?
Milje, yes.
Yes.
Smilje,
And she told me, actually, remember the first thing that she told me, because she was working behind the counter. She said, "I wouldn't be here if I didn't like it." You said that to me.
of course.
And which makes a lot of sense. It's not a given all the time because sometimes we just have to work, so it just doesn't matter. But
I've been in that point as well.
you gave that point as well, but now you're choosing. And yeah, so I think we started talking about Pardaugava, which is always for me a beautiful topic to start having a conversation because we both like it very much, right? Pardaugava in
both
Riga.
like it, and we both like it, but we both none of us live there. But of course, I'm fascinated by that part.
But this is important what you said because you're totally right. First of all, for who's listening, Pardaugava is the western side of Riga, is a an area which is less urban than the right side, where you got the center and everything else, and is a quieter area where you feel like some mixed feelings between being in the Latvian countryside and at the same time being within Riga. But presumably everybody knows what I'm talking about. But the thing is, what you said is important because me and Malvina, both of us, we didn't live in Pardauga, but we have reasons to go there. And maybe the reason why we are fascinated by it has to do with the fact that we don't live there. What do you what do you think? You think there is an element of dreaming that has to do with the fact that we don't live there? Maybe, I don't know.
This is something that I actually lately have not been able to wrap my head around yet, because I have so many reasons to visit Pardo every week.
Yeah.
Actually, when you were asking about my hobbies, all of them, all three of them, have something for me to do in Pardo. These are not even all of the things that I have to do there. I mean, I say have to do there, but actually, the life for me just have organized in that way. One aspect of me not actually living there right now could be that there's so much going on in my life that it takes effort to find a living space in an apartment. And I have kind of made my home in Teika for now, but I've spread the word out, so I'm just seeing if someone will have something really nice to offer. I would consider moving there soon, but yeah, at this moment it's kind of, I enjoy every time that I go there, and it feels like I'm going on a small trip,
Yeah.
So yeah, so for now I like to visit, but actually I'm slowly start to consider that, given the fact that I really have to go there several times a week, I might when I'm gonna be like finally made the decision that I'm ready to switch the places, then I will move. But for now, I'm just taking things slow and seeing where it goes. And actually, it's nice to cycle across the whole town, and sometimes also during the evenings in the summertime, at like 3 in the morning on my bicycle, seeing how what happens in the city center, it's also, it has its charm. So I know that people who live in Pardo, many of them, including my sister, they are a little bit like, how to say, arrogant about going to the city center, and
Oh
they're
yeah,
like, we have nothing to do there. So they
yeah.
are like even bragging whenever they cross the river. But I'm not maybe sharing this sentiment. I really like to see, I don't know, cross different parts of the town in one evening, and I find it precious as well. And crossing Daugava, these are my most favorite moments in the summer, when you just cross those big bridges. It's beautiful, So
Totally agree. And like very quickly for everyone, I don't know. Today I feel like I have to explain things. I don't have to. But to take, for example, we're talking about Pardaugava, the other side of the river, the less urban area of Riga. But Teika, we're talking about down Brivibayela, I guess. So down way from Brivibayela, you're moving away, but the city still feels very urban. It's not, you don't get the atmosphere of a micro district like Manta or Purtiems. You still feel in a Riga that has those big shoulder buildings from the beginning of a century. Maybe you got some, I guess there is a bit of Stalin architecture over there, but from the early Stalin, I think a bit like big, no, but we're not in the micro district, big high rise situation. Teika has got a beautiful. If I'm correct, we are at the beginning of VEF, of the old radio factory and all
I'm
those
even
things.
deeper in Teika, so I live in.
No,
I like to call this old Teika, because now
yeah,
there's Dona Teika, which has developed, and I'm not
yeah,
very big fan of the new projects, but I
yeah,
actually live in that part which is closer to the forest.
yeah,
So this is one of the reasons actually why I still enjoy living in this part, is because we have really cool forest here,
yeah,
and some smaller buildings. But Pardo, nevertheless, there's it's
yeah,
like, because I used to live in Pardo several years ago for I think 2 years, and anytime I was going to the city center, I very naturally said I'm going to the city, as
yeah,
if I would not be in the city already. So it
yeah.
did have a small town feeling, something similar to where I come from. So
I like that part when you said sometimes, for example, people sometimes understandably get squeamish with the most central part of a city, the most touristic part of a city. This is something that happens in London, or even in Italian cities or whatever. There is this kind of squeamishness towards the fact, oh, this is the commercial part where tourists go around and we don't really identify ourselves. And I've been in that situation, but now after a while of having been in those situations, like you, I appreciate all different scenarios like that. For example, uh, Riga somehow has got some portals between some virtual portals between boroughs, between rayons, as we say.
yeah,
Or and for example, already from central district, which is between Teika and Vetriga, you got one atmosphere. Teika, you got another atmosphere. Um, Going through the central district to Vetriga is a world apart almost,
yes,
which is quite
yes.
cool. And then the biggest portal is when you take the bridge and you go to Pardaugava, because the moment that you start cycling towards that direction, for the reason why I do it very often is because I feel like I'm going to a place where time is ticking differently or slowly. I don't know, right? It's
Yeah, something along those lines. But also, what's interesting about Riga, and what I still appreciate about the city a lot, is that you actually get like a mishmash of different people, and if you can say different, like a some, if I don't know if it's the right term, but social classes. There's very few districts where you can where it's like just solely for high class, very rich people. Even in I forgot the street name. I'm not so.
Alberta Yela, Clusight
Yeah,
Centers, no?
one of those Art Nouveau streets. Actually, there
Yeah,
used to be, or still is, like
yeah, yeah, Alberta Yela, I guess. One of
a
them.
dormitory, or like a squat type of place for students, and at the
Yeah,
same time, on across the street you get like really really fancy buildings, and nobody minds there if I go there like a regular citizen, maybe in my sportswear, and just wander around. There's the distinction here is, it's not so
no.
great, so you can actually feel welcomed in basically any place, you know,
Yeah.
regardless whether you live there or not, or you can afford
Yeah.
it or not. And like about Riga a lot.
And maybe this feeling that you described very well, because I totally hear you when you say that, has to do with the fact that there is a this is tough for me to say because I want to make sure that I say that I use the right word, but there is an amount of introvert, tendentially introvert people also, I would say. So that maybe contributes to the fact that they're not people are not invasive with for example in Rome or in Milan, if you get to the equivalent of the street that you were talking about, Alberta Iela, or
Mhm.
the posh one, let's call it posh, but so we can
Yeah.
understand each other.
Yes.
If you get to Milan or in another country like Italy where we are more extrovert, somehow our personality together with our wallet is imposing to
Mhm.
you, to me, even to me, a bit louder. So maybe the fact that there is a common aspect in Riga where people that live in Latvia tendentially a bit more introvert than Italian, at least allow me that. So maybe for me, for example, there is a I don't really feel I feel okay everywhere because it's calm. It doesn't matter if it's Gucci calm or Louis Vuitton calm or whatever, or if it's just Mieriela hipster calm, or if it's Vetriga or Pardaugava, is always kind of calm. And this actually is not intimidating. You see what I'm saying? But this is just my take on it.
Mm-hmm. But this is actually because I was about to ask you, how do you feel this difference, and do you feel like better here, or maybe it gives you more discomfort? Because for me, I mean,
Yeah.
I've traveled quite a lot, but I'm also lately I've been spending quite a long stretches of time actually in Latvia, also because of the COVID and because I'm not a student anymore and don't do Erasmus and all these things. But for example, the last trip I made was to Mexico, and it took me a bit of time, but not so much, to get used to this, as you say, this openness that they have, and the liveliness of streets, and that everyone really wants to and communicates with you fastly. It just takes like a 1 second long look in the eyes, and the people will be, you know, talking to you instantly. And then I was there for 5 weeks, and I came back to Riga, and I remember that first, it was, I think, the next day after I arrived, I was going to my usual Maxima that I have visited like thousands of times, and I realized that I don't get this anymore because nobody around me really notices me at all. You know, I felt this, not even okay, the physical distance, I mean, because of the COVID also this perception has changed a little bit about the physical distance, but even like emotionally and mentally, I was kind of invisible. And it took me, like, I think around a week to adapt back to it. And it was a little bit strange and uncomfortable for me, because then I don't know, I felt in Mexico, I felt that I feel safe when people notice me and I can ask them something, approach them. And then I come back and I don't get the same, even though, I mean, I've lived there among these people before and I didn't felt threatened or anything.
Mhm.
But it felt like, wow, okay, once I have experienced how a bit different mentality, it was a little bit strange for me to kind of calm down and be like, whoa, but it's okay, you know, these are still, you know, my people, and if something I can ask, and so on. But there was I had a slight discomfort because of that,
Mhm.
to be honest.
Yeah. I mean, I look, when you were talking, I had the temptation to say that we hardly get rid of the place where we grew up. So it will always going to be a part of us, right? Even if, for example, I lived in London for 8 years before I moved to Latvia. But
Mhm.
it's hard. I'm never going to say that I'm going to get rid of those 25 years in Italy, for example. They're part of me somehow. So I'm not going to be able to tell you where is the separation line between the way that I am now and the way that I used to be. I don't know about that. But one thing I can say with a bit of arrogance is that somehow for me, okay, I'm not going to be arrogant, not for everybody, for me, after my loud and imposing Mexican-like situation in southern Italy, which is more similar to Mexico than to Latvia, for sure. After those 25 years, somehow it makes me feel like it's easier for people that are extrovert to adapt to a situation that is introvert than the other way around. Okay, but again, it's a provocation for you. It's not true, probably. So the way that I see, I can always deal with quiet situation. I can always deal with that. And I like the fact that at some point, even if there is some sort of Italian carnival or Mexican explosion, I will always want to go back to a calm situation. So the fact that it's always there compared to the place where I come from is actually it makes me deal with it in a very easy way. I don't maybe it's just me. For me, it's easier to adapt to a introvert Latvia, because at some point I will have to go home. At some point, even Italians or Mexican get enough of that.
Yeah. But like I had one example though, which kind of, I mean, I don't want to blame none of the people who were involved. It was what it was, but it kind of got me thinking maybe of my own actions and how I maybe, I would say the first word that comes to my mind is social involvement.
Why not?
A term, but I had a situation once where I was just walking on the street in Riga, and I saw it was winter, and there was a bird on the street, a wounded bird, and it was still breathing, it was still alive, but it had something wrong going on with one of his wings, so he was not able to fly, and there was a little bit of blood coming off of him, but he was still breathing. So it was not a usual sight for me, to see a wounded animal, and it was actually in Pardo on a very busy street, but everyone was just passing him by, although it was the center of the pathway. So I just stop, I look at him, I don't know what to do. I've never found a wounded bird. So I knew that there is something called dzīvnieku policija, which is animal cops. But they told me they will not be able to pick him up sooner than in 1 hour. And I actually had to go to Pillsbars actually for my shift. And they suggested that I put the bird in a box, take it to my place, and then they will pick it up. And it's snowing. I'm in Pardo. I have to go to work. Obviously, I don't have a box. And I run to the nearest shop and I asked the sales lady, do you by any chance have any empty boxes? And the first thing she says instantly, without questions, is like, no boxes. And then I was like, I started to explain. I was like, but there's a bird in the street. I need to put him somewhere. He's wounded, da da da. And then the other sales lady connected to the conversation. And she's like, which size of a box do you need? So this was one of the situations, first of all, that so many people were just passing by. And then I was just asking for a box, and I saw that she just didn't want to deal with me at all. She didn't even knew why I need the box, what's the situation. She just said no instantly. And for sure, like none of this would happen with me in Mexico, because there I knew only 25 words and I got all the help that I needed, because people were not afraid to get involved with a stranger. So there are sometimes situations here where I feel that we should trust each other more and trust that a stranger might come with good intentions. And this is something that we might actually learn from southern countries, is to be more open and more relaxed and a little bit more like, really not running, not making conclusions before we really find out what's going on. And I think this would really benefit our society greatly. But on the other hand, I know that in the Soviet times, for example, there was a lot of betrayal going on, and you had to keep a lot of things secret, and you couldn't just, open up to any stranger. You couldn't even, open up to a lot of people close to you, like colleagues. And so I don't blame them, but I just wish we would make a little bit more effort,
Yeah.
because, we might solve some problems and
Yeah.
things like that.
Right.
So that's one example.
For 2 points of what you said. The first one is, maybe I'll talk about Italy. I presume that Italy is the closest thing to Mexico that I can talk about, because
Okay.
let's say compare, but you can still find people in that shop in Italy that maybe they'll give you an idea of not being ignored, because of they will still kind of give you the attention that maybe a Pardo or a shop attendant in Latvia might not give you, especially might not.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't mean that they're going to give you the box. But I just
Mm-hmm.
want a silly point. But maybe Malvine will feel more like, okay, well, at least they didn't blank me totally.
Yeah.
They gave me a bit of a Latin warmth or whatever it is. That doesn't mean they're going to give you a box, but at least they gave you that. The second point with the point that you made about Soviet time makes so much sense to me, because actually getting more informed about it, I managed to tame some of my frustration at the beginning when I moved to Latvia, because I was informed, but I wasn't necessarily putting together the information with the reality out there.
Yeah.
But slowly I understood, and he helped me not getting upset, because as you said, it was a time when the system had pushed people in not to trusting each other. So a introverty was a consequence of was a way to survive in that society. Being introvert was a way to survive, and there is no country, despite every culture is different, no country, in my opinion, that under that system wouldn't have developed a similar reaction to it.
Mhm.
If there was a system like that in Italy, or I can say that as a reaction for that, in 50 years, even Italians would have become a bit more introvert, because it's a way of surviving. It's not. Um, so I understand that, and also I understand that, as it happens, usually we are more demanding with our people, right? So I
Yeah.
always notice that even in me, I'm tendentially more critical towards my fellow Italians than everybody else.
Mhm.
And why? Why is that? Because we know it more than a foreigner. See, Malvina, despite you're a very modest person and you don't give the impression of I know this and that. You're very humble when you speak. But despite that, you have an experience of your country that I will only dream about, that because you grew up, I guess you grew up in Latvia.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So every time that we know something better than somebody else that is not from our country, we are a bit more critical. So we want more from our people, I guess. No?
Yes. And now that you say that, one pretty big factor maybe why I care about it so much is because I really, and I don't know where this feeling comes from. I just have it really strongly. Is that I really like the country that I come from, my culture, my language, and I really wish all the best for this place, and also for the people, and I'm sometimes also, let's say, compared with my experience in Mexico and everything, I'm just so grateful actually about how safe I can feel here. I don't have to think of what will be the consequences of me leaving my house, whereas in Mexico that is actually a very big problem, and you have this thing going on at the back of your mind. So for me, the point we have reached for up until now for the society, I mean, it's pretty good, and I feel safe and comfortable in this country. But yeah, so I just wish, like, I feel like I'm part of some sort of a family. It's with a very strange past and a lot of traumas and a lot of still, let's say,
Challenges.
interesting issues and still inner drama going on. But I have a feeling that we still have to stick together, because the fact itself that this country exists, that we have managed to maintain such a level of safety, which was not even possible even in the 90s. I mean, I was not born in that time yet, but the time when the Soviet Union collapsed, it was still quite crazy, and there were like rackety and mafias going on, and of course there are still problems, but generally overall I feel safe in here, and I really like, I think we should put some effort to maintain this and try to, you know, be friends with each other and try to solve situations and so on. So I actually, it comes out of care, because I really care about this place.
Yeah, but you see, you are a living proof of the fact that it's easier for the younger generation and is not given at the same time to appreciate the time that we're living and where we come from. As you said, we don't have to live the 90s to know how crazy it was. So we
Yes.
we can hear those stories. I personally hear a lot of stories. I haven't lived the 90s in Latvia, but we have the imagination and the experience to understand, even if from another country, how dangerous it was. But so there is justice in the fact that the generations change slowly and things like that. Because even if you talk about all those conflicts and all those ideas, all those parts of the population, also the fact that for some historical reasons that are understandable, ethnic Russian and Latvians didn't get along. But somehow the younger generation that is living now, they care relatively less about these distinctions. With the era of the internet and being friends, and even the English that is being spoken more and more with culture and things like that. So with everything like that. So you're totally right. It makes a lot of sense. We reach a point where I challenge everyone to take a walk in Riga, even in the outskirts, and not feel safe. In my opinion, in Europe is even compared to my country. Forget about Mexico, which is crazy. Let's talk about Italy or France or whatever. If you These cities where I come from, they're like thermometer. If you move away from the center and you walk through an area that looks like a micro district in Italy, you better not go in those places during the night. I I've been many places in area like at night, like Imanta or, for example, other micro districts. There is a definitely different atmosphere. There are normal families living in those micro districts. There is no necessarily the dangerous atmosphere that you can find in the rest of Europe, and this is because of an historical factor where in those big micro districts, every family, normal family, could live in the 70s or in the 60s. In the rest of Europe, they were created for people that were in the border of society. So in Italy, the person that was coming out of prison had a accommodation over there. The person that couldn't work because of maybe addiction or things like that. So historically, those micro districts in Italy, for example, they're already sending you an alarm when you see one of them. And they're becoming some ghettos and things like that. But before I moved to Latvia, everybody's been telling me about Kengaraks here and Kengaraks there and Kengaraks here. And then I've been there many times. I'm not saying that it's super safe, but I will never compare it to the places that I've seen back home. So you're totally right. Riga is a safe city, and it's just you're right. It makes you feel like we should keep what we achieved and look at the future.
And kind of appreciate it. And maybe speaking of the younger generation, I mean, I have very high hopes in them. I don't know that many people maybe who are in their 20s now, but I mean, I have high hopes in them, but I really wish that maybe in their schools or in their families they would be taught how to actually appreciate what we have now. Because I see lately that there are a lot of, not a lot of, but in some cases, people are complaining about issues that are not really that important. Maybe we should focus more on the what we have achieved and see how we can maybe maintain it and polish it, instead of always finding some kind of an enemy or always finding something that's messed up, because then we will always just circle around this idea that there is something wrong going on, and we will actually, I believe, if we will focus it on too much, we will maybe subconsciously even try to create problems ourselves just so that we can justify solving them. So I really wish that, because it has taken for me a while to, and also maybe traveling and reading some books to actually see the opportunities that we have and the all the awesome things that we can do and we can achieve here, and all the chances that we have here that sometimes you don't even get in, like for example, in the United States, the nature there is not as available as for us in here. For example, if you live in New York or something, that you have to go for several hours until you get out of the city, until you get into the nature. For us, it's like half an hour maximum. Really a lot of goodness in this place, and try to maintain it, and care about it, and don't be always try to find enemies.
No, you're right. When you were talking, everything looks also closer because of the size of the country, and calmer, and way calmer. I'm not sure about United States big, but definitely compared to the Europe that I know, this is calmer. This is nice. This is quiet. But what were you referring on when you were talking about? I'm curious about like a younger generation making enemies, complaining about things. I'm just curious.
All those issues, for example, about the human rights, the equality, and all these things, it's, for me, sometimes I think it's not that big of an issue actually as it's
Give me
made.
an example. What do you mean? The homosexual couples, or what are we talking about?
I mean, I do understand these issues in a way, yes, for sure, but also, let's say, compared to how it was before, the progress is actually quite tremendous. I have heard some young people who have actually left Latvia saying that, no, it's not that good in here as, for example, in Berlin. And that basically Latvia is like, it's still a shithole here. We are still like, living like caveman, and in Berlin things are totally different. I understand that for some people, there are still quite a lot of problems. Not everything maybe goes in their lives as the way they would like to, and they are restricted in a way. But also, I don't think that leaving the country is the right solution, and just saying that everything is shit and we have to move to another place. It's not kind of also helping the issue and trying to see how we can solve it. So,
but this, what you're saying makes a bigger point if you put it in the perspective of the fact that I think Latvia is really suffering every time the young people decide to leave. So in that sense, it makes sense. In that sense, it makes sense for me, because we should invest on people on staying, because there's not enough people, and that's the objective of a country. Even if it's quiet, as I usually say, and it's better for Fabrizio because it's quiet, is a very selfish point of view, because it's quiet at the cost of the country not doing that great. So that great, at least. So in that sense, you're right. It's not enough maybe for people to leave, but also, like, let's suppose that there is a problem. I don't know what we were talking about specifically, but let's suppose we were talking about homophobia and being integrated or whatever. Jesus, it's difficult if you don't feel accepted. And I think there may be a point that you were trying to make. In Riga, maybe there is that problem doesn't exist that much as in a small town. Maybe. If we were talking about the same thing, I don't know if we were talking about the same thing.
We can talk
but
about
we can talk about that. For a person to feel like there is a bit of homophobia around, and suppose this person is homosexual. I'm talking from a country, from southern Italy, which we're still not doing that great. So I'm not coming here to judge with the situation in Latvia. But definitely in a bigger city, and there are not too many, because the gap between Riga and the second biggest city is a bit wide. So I would say that maybe I would like to know. I don't know. Maybe in Riga there is an atmosphere that now is way different from the past. I think probably homosexuals feel more integrated. Yet there are a lot of people that maybe in the countryside they feel, well, this is, we could do better in the way that we are seen or whatever, maybe. And yeah, so for some people to sacrifice their liberty for the good of the country, especially when they're not accepted a bit, when they don't feel that they're not accepted, is too much to ask. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
But I also have to admit that I don't know anybody. I don't know anyone that is an homosexual here in Latvia. So I would like to. Do you know anyone? Do you know any that tell you how they feel?
I know quite a few, and
Yeah,
I mean, we haven't like maybe talked in depth about it, but so far, I mean, yeah, I think they see several problems, and there
yeah,
maybe are points in the current policy around these topics that maybe we disagree with each other. But that's, I mean, that's totally normal, and it should
yeah,
happen in any conversation. But all in all, I mean, they are still living here, and then maybe they are traveling more and see that the things are different elsewhere. But nevertheless, I mean, at least those few people that I know, they are not complaining much, and they're actually quite content with their lives, and in their professions, and also in their relationships and so on. So yeah, I mean, my point was that I see that there are some issues that are still unresolved, or definitely could be improved. But lately, somehow the rhetoric feels like as if it would be like this issue would be like a real threat to a life or something. Whereas I know that, for example, in Mexico, this would not be currently an issue, because they're getting shot on the street in the night
I
is
see,
a
I
threat
see,
for life.
I
So
see.
I think we also have to be a little bit more
Hmm, hmm.
maybe chill about the language that we use, and the way how we approach each other, and the way how we talk,
Hmm.
so that we don't make anyone who disagrees with our opinions
I
instantly
see.
an enemy and a threat. And because unfortunately, the polarization is happening quite quickly here, and I really wish we would be just a little bit more conscious of how we talk to each other, and also kind of accept that maybe some people, they have their reasons for
Yeah,
not changing some things or their opinions about their lives, and it's, in a way, it's still fine as long
yeah,
as they're
yeah,
not really harming anyone else.
yeah.
But yeah, these are very complicated topics that I
Mm,
try to wrap my head around, but it's easy actually, because
no, and I honestly don't want to sound like I have the answers. What I can say is that one thing that we need to get more accustomed, and I have to get more accustomed myself, is always an endless learning process. I think, as we were saying in the last podcast, we need to get more accustomed to disagree with each other and still be friends.
yes, I
And
totally agree.
yeah, so as you said, it's okay to have a conversation and get to a point where we disagree and kind of rationalize the fact that people are different, but still have that conversation. That's the secret. We're still supposed to have that conversation and disagree and still kind of leave the conversation on good terms.
Hmm.
Um, the more we get accustomed to that, and I think in this latest era of podcast and nuance the conversation, what we're doing today and whatever, I think that we are slowly getting towards that direction. Slowly, your attitude definitely helps when you say you have a very uh, empathic attitude, which you can never do too many mistakes with that. You want to understand people. You want to understand where they come from, why they're upset, or things like that. So, and also you got as you said, you got the experience of having seen something different. So clearly, you come back from Mexico, you come back home, and all of a sudden you see you see, you can compare realities. I mean, you come back and you say, well, why the fuck are we complaining? You probably, so, so there is experience and value in that. The only thing is that until we go to Mexico, that's the only reality that we see. You see what I'm saying? So, but yeah, let me ask you a question. At the moment, you are dividing yourself from a side job in the best pub of Riga, I would say. Again, Pills and Smilgajela,
Yes,
unusual place, beautiful place. Cycle there. Now the spring is coming. The terrace will open, I hope.
yes, it's already open. So well,
What am I doing here? Why am I here? Uh, because it's
wasting your
Monday.
time with me.
It's Monday. I get no. I am, but we could have talked live, but unfortunately, it's Monday, and it's no easy to have one beer too many, and for me to work the next day. But so what are you doing? How are you spending your days? So now you living in Teika. You are kind of looking for an accommodation, possibly in Pardaugava, which is great area of Riga, and you are doing some. You working occasionally in the pub. And how are you spending your time? What are you doing?
uh, so I will refer to maybe just the last year because I'm that type of person who is changing the lifestyle, or at least professionally. I've changed jobs quite a lot, but finally I've settled to be a freelancer. At least for now, I'm working on translations, English into Latvian. Slowly trying to find my way there, and I really realized that I really like working freelance. After several years of working for several companies, I finally figured it out that I really enjoy the flexibility and freedom that it gives me. So yeah, different kinds of translations, also transcriptions, basically anything that I can do, and I feel confident that I can do well. Now the summer is approaching, and I'm also part-time working for a one gardening company. So I will be, actually tomorrow is my first working day there this season. This is also something that I started doing last year. So basically, I just figured that I really like to work a little bit by the computer and a little bit do something in the, as I say, three-dimensional reality. So
Hmm.
pub, which is a lot about communicating with people, hearing stories, and just making everyone. Hopefully, I do that. Make people feel welcome. Yeah. So doing that, and also being outdoors and taking care of the gardens, because this is also something that I really like, is to help to create some kind of a space and environment for people to enjoy their lives. That's also one of the reasons I like to work in Pils, because it depends a lot on me, actually, how the evening will turn out, and all the setup and the candle lights and the music. You know, there are no coincidences there. It's like a little bit like a theatrical play. You have to do
Yeah.
the setup and everything. So yeah, I'm just doing different kinds of projects, or whatever comes to me at that moment, and and in between, I'm just doing a lot of things that I enjoy. And actually, I'm that type of person who has quite, I don't know, maybe you call these people late bloomers. So it's been last, I don't know, 2 3 years, and I actually somehow started to focus more on things that I like or would like to try, even though it feels quite late with doing that. For example, yeah, I think 3 years ago, restarted, actually, after a really long break. I restarted learning drums, and turns out I really like that. I mean, I'm 29 now. It's not easy to start a music instrument when you're like in your almost 30s, but I'm
Okay.
still making an effort for that. So that takes part of my time. And like 3 weeks ago, I decided that I will finally learn how to swim. This is also, it takes effort. I mean, yeah, if I would be a child and know how to swim, it's different than
Easier.
try to get over your fear when you're 29. But yeah, and somehow, yeah, so I have these kind of projects that I enjoy and that I make living with. And then I try to fill in the gaps, with other things that I find meaningful as well. And somehow they keep appearing more and more. So it's very interesting, this part of my life currently.
You kind of remind me of now this is sounds like a bullshit publicity to my podcast, but it's not. But you kind of remind me of the last guest that I had, which
Oh,
is
really?
Mr. Laurinch Gatis, that I really hope one day that we might maybe introduce both of you.
He comes to
Yeah, we can go to Pills. I'm sure he's familiar with it. We might have seen it already. And he was telling me how restless he is about getting into different careers, but also like thirsty for knowledge and for meaningful experiences. He didn't phrase it like that. I've used a bit of your words, and somehow when he said that to me, I felt all of a sudden I felt like this is why life is. I know it sounds very cheesy what I'm saying, but this is
what it's about.
why we here.
Hmm.
This is just it's pretty much, and there is a period of time where maybe in high school or whatever we go a bit crazy, or after that or uni, and all of a sudden we just want to have a lot of fun and just go crazy. Or all of a sudden, personally, at least in my 30s, this is the time to start allocating your time to make the most out of life. Pretty much, that's at least for me. And when you hear people that do that better than you, because I think you have more hobbies than the ones that I have, you actually understand that everything, even a beer, becomes more of a beer when you do it maybe once a month because you're super busy.
Hmm.
Even a cigarette has a better taste when you smoke it instead of like 10 a day. But I
Yeah.
really feel like a cigarette now. And the last one was maybe 1 month ago, because your life is divided with this. Okay, well, I'm coming from Lutzavsala, from my garden, then I'm going to listen to some stories and work in Pills, then I'm going back home, I'm making dinner, I'm playing the drums for 50 minutes, then I'm going to write a couple of thoughts about Mexico, and then tomorrow I'm going to do something else. And all of a sudden it feels like your life is full, and it just right, am I talking bullshit?
It's totally correct. Yeah. And one thing that I was
And
actually
that beer is tastier when it happens.
yes. One thing I was thinking about, actually, was it today or yesterday, was that also with all these many, I feel like I'm sometimes it can drive me a little bit crazy that I'm always searching for something, but it's nice when I figured it out and kind of settle for it. But sometimes I have put a little bit too much pressure on me for starting all these things quite late, and then maybe only now figuring out what type of work model I would like to work for the next few years. But then I thought to myself, and I thought, but damn, like no matter what you do, there will nevertheless be someone who does it better. So why should I care about not doing it perfectly, and not matching up with other people, or thinking that, oh, I'm 29 and I'm learning how to swim, and then I see a 3-year-old swimming super nicely next to me, but it doesn't matter, because I'm where I am at right now. And if I want to compare to myself with other people, then I won't be able to achieve anything, because there will always be someone who does this better. So I kind of try to stop caring about this. And I think this is the main thing that I have learned lately, and that has helped me actually to make these steps towards something new
Yeah.
and actually keep on returning to it, is the fact that I start to stop caring about other people's role in this, or how they do this or that. I realized that there is something unique actually about how we organize our lives. And I know that for a lot of people, they say that they would not be able to go freelance or do like I do, like 3-4 different kinds of projects in my life, that I make living with, but for me it works out perfectly fine, and I don't know why, but it
And
just does.
you still putting yourself under pressure to compare yourself with other people.
I
And
do. I
but
do
but
from time to
but,
time. Yeah.
but and which is everybody does it, but look at what you know, congrats being able to move from one project to another, to be able to s- to to pay the bills. Being a freelance is beautiful because somehow you don't belong to the hierarchy too much. You don't have a boss, so you're your own boss until you accept the job, of course. That's the
Yeah.
but but yeah, I mean, like when you were talking about swimming, I I understand the fact that we are bound to compare each other, and this comes from a logic also of, in my opinion, personally, it comes from when we used to belong to a group back in middle school or in high school. We
Hmm.
always have this kind of, well, it's a bit like a loser. The other one looks a bit cooler, whatever. We just bring these things with us, but at the end of the day, about swimming, I go to RTU sometimes, right? And I've been swimming more or less all my life, but if I had to compare myself with those avatar figurines of Latvian or Russian massive giants, you know the body of a swimmer is one of the few beautiful things that you can ever see. Doesn't matter if he's a woman or a man. It's one of the most beautiful things because it's slender, it goes up. There is no waist. They don't have a waist. So they're like Avatar. They're just super thin, and then the shoulder is something like dry and muscles. It's like a
Yeah.
machine. It's like
Yeah.
a powerful machine. So there is an ingredient of vanity when I look at my belly and I'm in the changing room or whatever. There is always will be with us a bit. But I got better, and the reason why I'm going back there very often is not because of the um, challenge in wanting to look better. That's part of it, but it's because you have to enjoy it a little bit. If you
Hmm.
enjoy it a little bit, everything else becomes accessorial because you have to enjoy the water just flowing by your head and the feeling with swimming that in Italian is called acquaticità. What does it mean? In English, I don't know how to call it. It's the moment that you parallel enough to the surface of the water, so you start using your feet that you are gliding in the surface, so you light. And the moment that you put your neck like that, you are slowing down. You have to be parallel. So the moment that with a lot of difficulties you manage to do a bit of that, 10% of that, not 100%, all of a sudden it doesn't matter if you have Mr. Phelps on the other lane or like this beautiful and or the other guy on the other side that it doesn't matter anymore because in order to go back to the swimming pool you have to love it a bit,
Yeah.
otherwise it's sacrifice. And and I forgot my point. But what I wanted to say is that yeah, we get lost in comparing and things like that. But at the end of the day, it's all about pushing ourselves a bit more at the beginning because the moment that you pass the checkpoint where you like water and running or swimming or whatever, it becomes somehow addictive. It's too late to come back.
Yeah.
Yeah. So but the beauty of it is the fact that the real success is the fact that you are allowing yourself to fail, because the real
Mhm.
success is the fact that you want to Malvine want to start trying all these different things. This is already a success. It's quite
Yeah.
cool.
And I think in this, I think I had a conversation about this yesterday. Maybe it's but somehow it happens in a lot of cases. Maybe in a lot for a lot of people, I know that they realize it quite late in their lives, and in several cases, people don't understand it, don't ever understand it. But it's the fact that we should allow ourselves to return a little bit to the childhood childlike state, because if you watch children, they don't have this block. They will, if you throw them in the water, they will do whatever they want, and they will try, and then they will fall, and they will get back, and they don't care like, oh, this looks silly, this must look silly, how my belly looks like. They don't have this. They are
Yeah,
in the
yeah,
moment enjoying themselves. And this is really important maybe to take a little bit. Of course, we are adults, we have to be responsible, we have to, see things and control things. But when it comes to things that we enjoy, and that we spend our time with, we should like kind of still try to return to what we actually used to. Also with the swimming, it's mind blown, because I mean, every infant, if you throw a baby in the water, they will swim. And
Yeah,
then with the time we lose the sense. And I
but
I
you're
was,
right.
yeah,
You're
and I
right.
have a feeling that I don't know how to swim, and I look around and I think I'm exceptional. But then
Mm.
I think I have just, for a very long time, I have forgotten this knowledge and maybe acquired some fear. But technically my body is supposed to be able to do this, with the time and with everything, because as a baby, I mean, in my mother's womb, I was swimming
Yeah,
probably in a way,
yeah. The
so
Nirvana cover that we all remember. Yeah,
yes.
absolutely. But and also with this city life, like where we just laptop and all this been sitting down like a potato, whatever, and all this stuff. Our body wasn't made for this. We were made to just travel, walk in the woods, and hunter and gatherers or whatever. So the moment that you're not using your body, you're not answering to that request for energy or walk or swim or gardening or whatever. Your body accumulates rage, or no,
Yes,
it's like there's no rage. It becomes,
it's like a pressure, no,
yeah,
something.
like yeah. So and then we fight more easily, or maybe we drink one beer too many, and but how beautiful is a week where you did a bunch of things, and you feel like you feel satisfied with I hope you enjoyed the conversation.
Yes, yes, something to think about, actually.
Perfect. Perfect. Well, hasta la vista.
Ciao.
Ciao. Ciao.